This Week Explained, the independent geopolitical podcast that tackles all the major global events. We're glad you're here as we bring you all the insights and analysis on what's happening around the world. As always, I'm Tiana, and I'm here with my co-host, Kervin.
Hello.
Together, we'll help you understand the complexities of our dynamic, ever-changing world. So let's get to what's on the agenda this week, Kervin.
All right. We've got some Russia-Ukraine conversation that's still going on. But we are also going to talk about how Poland has said they're going to start focusing on themselves and not continue.
Oh my gosh. Self-care moment.
Self-care. Little mental health day.
I love a little mental health day. Do it, Poland. We all need to do that more.
We do. Yeah. That was evident after the weekend that we had.
Let's get through what's on our agenda, then we can talk about ourselves. Come on.
Okay. All right. But then we're going to get into what I think was the big geopolitical event of the week, and it was quite quick. And that is the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia that heated up before it was quickly water was thrown on it, and they came to a peace deal. But we'll get into the implications of that. And then we're going to get back to Africa because we want to talk more about the coups that have gone on in a few of the African nations, and 3 of those African nations may be looking to break away from the ECOWAS, the sort of economic establishment between Western African nations. And after that, we're going heavy on talk about China. We've learned over the past few weeks that so far this year, China has sent a record number of planes towards Taiwan. And then after they did that, President Xi came out and said, you know what, guys, U.S. and China need to achieve peaceful coexistence.
He really said those words.
Yeah, wow. He really said that.
I'm personally excited to talk about the Azerbaijan-Armenian conflicts because it's the kind of geopolitical event that we like to talk about, and that obviously, you know, conflict brews sometimes between countries, but it was resolved quickly.
Yep.
And there was a peace deal, and that's nice. They realized that, you know, maybe they should focus on their people and not just whatever their conflicts is.
My bulky blender was such a pain to use, I ended up hardly ever using it at all. But the BlendJet 2 portable blender makes blending so easy and convenient, I use it just about every day. BlendJet 2 is portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita on the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. BlendJet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. It lasts for 15 plus blends and recharges quickly via a USB-C cord. Best of all, BlendJet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap and you're good to go. With over 30 plus colors and patterns to choose from, there's a BlendJet 2 to complement just about any style. I absolutely love the Lisa Frank edition. What are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com and grab yours today. And be sure to use the promo code Analytics12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. Blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to blendjet.com and use the code Analytics12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever.
Then let's get started. What is the latest in Ukraine?
Yeah, the situation in Ukraine obviously remains very complex. Ukraine's liberation of areas south of Bakhmut may have degraded the Russian defense in that region. That's a big deal. Because of that, Ukrainian forces continue their offensive actions near Bakhmut, but also in western Zaporizhzhia. I did see that the Ukrainian General Staff said that Ukrainian forces continued their offensive operations and that they did inflict significant losses on Russian manpower and equipment. As well, Ukrainian forces continue this slow-moving counteroffensive, and they're consolidating forces along these newly overtaken front lines.
We keep talking about the counteroffensive and Russian attacks on various civilian locations within Ukraine. Also, Ukraine is taking the fight to Russia by not only attacking Crimea, but also parts of Russia to include the capital of Moscow. At some point, legitimate peace talks hopefully, they need to start.
Yeah.
So where do we stand on efforts to find a peaceful resolution to the war in Ukraine? Because, if China is offering to talk to us about a peace deal, I think us just move forward peacefully. I think Russia and Ukraine could at least talk about it.
And you used a key word there because you said legitimate peace talks, because both countries are talking separately about what a peace deal should look like.
Yeah, what they obviously have two very different ideas of what a peace deal should look like.
Exactly. Now, right now, it's still very tense. We've talked about this before. One side needs to feel like they're winning in order to come to the table, and the other side needs to feel like they're not going. There's no chance that they're going to win, and that's what's so tough. Recently, though, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made his first in-person appearance at the UN Security Council meeting. This is his first appearance since Moscow's invasion of his country, Ukraine. Now, the Russian ambassador objected to him taking the floor, so you see it's still very tense there. That added to the tension. Now, some nations are urging all parties to come to the table and discuss peace, because it does affect everyone around the globe. Supply chains, economics, those kind of things. Turkey, that's one of those countries that is speaking out. They want a speedy peace deal so they can, get back to basically helping their people out in their economy and stuff like that. Also, interestingly, former U.S. President Donald Trump, who is currently the front runner as the Republican candidate for president, claims that he has a roadmap for peace in this conflict.
He would say that. But has he presented this roadmap, or is he just, talking like he usually does?
Well, as you said, as he usually does. It's
There's
just
no
talk.
outline or anything? Oh,
no.
Okay.
Just talk, right? Not that I have seen. If he does have a peace plan, if he does have a roadmap, he has it. He knows of it. I don't. I haven't seen it yet. And neither has Volodymyr Zelensky, because he asked that Trump actually release his plan, because he wants to see it. If he has a legitimate roadmap for peace, he wants to see the plan. But he did caution that anything that allows Russia to keep the land it has taken from Ukraine during that special military operation is a non-starter.
Yeah, obviously.
I think that it's a good idea for Trump to release this plan.
It would help his president. It would help his.
Yep. It would help to highlight his foreign policy. Because say what you want.
Still running for president.
But yeah, and say what you want. He was president of the United States. He does understand foreign policy.
Right.
Does he understand it correctly? That's debatable. I don't really have an answer for that, but
yeah,
he does have that experience.
Right.
Now, I'm led to believe, knowing what we know about a Donald Trump presidency, that his plan would involve allowing Russia to keep those recently annexed regions. And in his mind, he's thinking, let's just end this, do away, let Russia do that, and go back to having Ukraine have the rest of their land. But until he releases it, we just don't know what's in it.
Well, while the international community still debates parameters for peace in Ukraine, let's discuss this new report out of Poland that they will focus on themselves and stop providing weapons to Ukraine. So what is happening there?
Yes, this week, like you said, Poland decided to halt arms sales to Ukraine. And that was actually, they framed it in a way that was like, we're going to focus on ourselves. But really, the underlying reason is there's a dispute over grain exports. So what happened there was that the European Commission moved to allow Ukrainian grain sales across the European Union. But some of the countries in the European Union are a bit upset, and they blocked those imports to protect their own farmers.
So how does this impact the Poland-Ukraine relations?
Well, the grain dispute between Poland and Ukraine it's had a significant impact on their bilateral relations. As we see, Poland decided to halt those arms sales, and so this is straining the friendship between the two countries even more. The move is seen as a significant setback for Ukraine because it's been relying on Polish arms supplies to support its military operations against Russian-backed separatists in the east of the country.
Right.
Additionally, President Zelensky's criticism of not only Poland but other countries like Hungary and Slovakia, who also came out opposed to this grain deal, has further complicated the situation. Another aspect of this event, and I think really what's causing this friction, is that Poland is currently in the midst of an election.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the current leadership needs to demonstrate its commitment to defending Poland, while also they have to show people that they're going to support Ukraine, because on the in a Western mindset, we need to support Ukraine. So they do need to still show that because of those aggressive actions from Russia, because they understand they're in Russia's crosshairs. So they could be one of the next countries. In my analysis, it's highly probable that this issue could influence public opinion and political discourse in Poland. That's why they're starting to talk about this. The grain fight and its consequences may become a topic of discussion during the election campaign, and you'll see different political parties offering their perspectives on the matter. Right now, it remains to be seen how this dispute is going to shape the political landscape in Poland.
Well, I'm sure we will talk plenty about the upcoming elections in Poland in future episodes. We've got lots of elections to get through in the coming year. So let's get into what became the major geopolitical event of the week, and that is Azerbaijan's counterterrorism offensive against Armenia. This has been brewing for quite a while and even made your list of the top 5 potential conflicts to watch out for in 2023. So what can you tell us about the situation and where do we stand right now?
Yeah, let's dive right into it. So early this week, Azerbaijan's military launched what it called, they want to quote them on this, localized anti-terrorist measures in Nagorno-Karabakh. And that was after landmines killed both soldiers and civilians. Now, Azerbaijan accused Armenian separatists of the deaths of those soldiers and civilians, but Armenia denied that they had any involvement in it. So this mission's goal was to disarm Armenian forces and protect ethnic Azeris, while Armenia has said they don't have any troops in the region, so there's no reason to do this. It was a very significant development. It caught a lot of people by surprise, but very quickly there was a peace deal struck. Now, under the agreement, separatist forces are going to have to disband and disarm, paving the way for talks on the future of the region and the ethnic Armenians that are living there. Now, Azerbaijan says it's going to take full control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region. That might be something that holds up future peace in that region, because they're looking to integrate around 120,000 ethnic Armenians into its society.
Oh, wow. That's quite a transition.
Yeah.
How did Armenia respond to these events?
Well, very interestingly, Armenia did not intervene militarily at all during this.
Well, they're saying, they're like, we didn't have any troops there, and we're not going to intervene militarily because we don't have any troops there.
Yeah, and they're accusing Azerbaijan of attempting to ethnically cleanse the region. And that's something that Azerbaijan right now denies doing.
Well, the situation definitely appears to be quite complex compared to that little blurb in the beginning whenever you were telling me. How does this development impact the current geopolitical landscape?
I mean, like you said, it's very complex. So it has several implications for the region, but it also has some implications on a global level. First, it marks a significant shift in power dynamics as Azerbaijan gains control over that Nagorno-Karabakh region. It also raises questions about the future of ethnic Armenians that are living in the region. They're going to want to continue to live in their house.
Of course.
But then do they have to say, do they have to integrate into Azerbaijani society?
And kind of abandon their own culture?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're very worried about that because...
They definitely shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah. And it's two types of people with
right.
Two different belief systems and all of this stuff. So, like I said, very complex.
Yeah.
But the conflict has also drawn attention from the international community due to its potential impact on regional stability.
Okay.
So we've already got aggressive actions by Russia, and they're playing a role in trying to achieve peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. So they're like two different fronts.
Right.
Now, while there is a peace deal in place, this is not the last that we're going to, even this year, that we're going to be talking about the Nagorno-Karabakh region.
Well, yes. Obviously, the former Soviet Union is a hotbed for geopolitical activity lately. And speaking of hotbeds for geopolitical activity, it appears that the Sahel region in West Africa is making a lot of headlines. Mm-hmm. So what is the latest going on there?
Yeah, so, right, we've had a lot of discussions about West Africa recently because of the various coups happening in those countries.
All the coups.
This week, military leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have established a security alliance called the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES.
That's awesome. I'm glad they're working together.
They want to work together to defend and assist each other in the event of rebellion, insurgency, or external aggression.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's work. Let's work on ourselves, and no one's going to help you out if you don't help yourself out, right? You got to look out for yourself.
Exactly. So, is this alliance in conjunction with the Economic Community of West African States, or does it intend to break away from that alliance?
Well, if you remember those three countries, all of which are dealing with military takeover of their governments, all three of them, they are concerned with the actions from the ECOWAS, or the Economic Community of Western African States. Burkina Faso and Mali have recently responded to the threat by the ECOWAS to intervene militarily in Niger by warning that any such operation would be deemed, and listen to these words because you hear it across a bunch of nations around the globe.
Yeah.
Any such operation, any such attack on Niger would be deemed a declaration of war against them.
Oh, yeah, we have heard those sequence of words quite frequently. So how significant is this AES alliance?
Well, it holds immense significance for the Sahel region. They have a charter. The charter outlines the goals of the alliance, which include combating terrorism, ensuring the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the member countries. So those are the two things they want to focus on. And it shows that those countries no longer desire what would be deemed Western help in combating terrorism.
Well, it's common knowledge that the Sahel region continues to be plagued by jihadist violence. But how does this alliance address security challenges?
Yeah, so the AES seeks to address security challenges collectively as opposed...
Together.
Yep. So what used to happen was each country was focused on themselves and their own borders. I think they're understanding that's not working. So by joining forces, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso aim to enhance their capabilities in combating terrorism. And I would say focusing on that would maintain stability in the region.
Okay, well, I have another question. In this new little club they have going on here, are they all on equal footing, or is there a leader between all three? Because for the most part, whenever you see these groups, there are clear, obvious leaders that all the other countries defer to. So in this situation, are they just all on an even keel? Like what
so right now, what it looks like, because they use collectively a lot.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking maybe they could be doing this a little differently. It's starting out. Okay, shot, Tiana. Let him answer.
But what happens in countries that are what we would used to call third world countries or emerging countries.
Emerging economies.
Emerging economies is that a lot of times, a lot of things are brought up with good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And then because they don't have an established economy, and because, security in the region is all over the place and it's not stable, that someone comes in and decides to take the lead.
Commandeers everything.
Yep. And then further destabilizes the region.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen.
Yep.
Because it seems kind of cool that they're like all showing up together and they're all equal and there's no clear leader. Because in those situations, I think the whole point, like whenever you join a group like that, you're supposed to you all agreed, supposedly you all agree with the same things. And so you should be going into it together equally.
You should. Yeah. And listen.
Okay.
The U.S. has been there for over a decade, fighting in the Western Sahel, fighting terrorism,
okay.
right? And it's a counterterrorism campaign.
Yeah, you've been going there for a while,
right?
Well,
and
used to go there.
And so I think the leaders there, and definitely the people there, are looking at it and going, "What has that gotten us?"
Right.
Because we're still struggling with all of this stuff. So I think that has a lot to do with animosity towards the West, towards France and the U.S., that they haven't really, I can say we have achieved a lot in the work that I have participated in. We got rid of a lot of terrorist organizations there. I do think that if not done correctly, this could invite more terrorist organizations to infiltrate those countries.
If it becomes unstable.
Yes. But if they work on the collective, and if the work is indeed for the citizens and for the security of the countries, it could work very well if they pool all of their resources together.
Right. Okay. Well, fingers crossed that's how it goes. Well, I mean, it's interesting that this alliance comes at a time when the three countries are facing internal political crises and strained relations with international partners. So how does this impact the current geopolitical landscape?
Yeah, I mean, all the political crises, all the strained relations with international partners adds complexity to the geopolitical landscape. This alliance, to me, when I'm analyzing it, could open the door for more involvement from Russia and China in a region dominated by Western partners like France and the U.S. So while publicly the group has stated they want to bring stability to the region, there could be unintended consequences because of the current state of affairs between the global West and the global South.
Well, do you think the AES would be looking to align even more with Russia and China because of that? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that if things stay the way that they are, and those juntas remain in power, they will be increasing their relationship with Russia and China. That's what they want to do. If you remember, we saw before the coups, Russia had a presence within the militaries in those African nations. So what does that mean for the geopolitical future of the Western Sahel? It means right now the West is out. Okay. We're ushering in a new era where China and Russia establish military bases. Right now, the U.S. has moved their military operations from the capital, Niamey, to
that place.
I did. And they're moving to the airbase that I was totally against in Agadez. So
where's that one?
It's a little further east.
Okay.
Of Niamey.
I don't remember the name.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, well, is that why you were against it?
A lot of that is because I like some creature comforts that Niamey had. Quite a few restaurants that I got to know the owners, and it was just good to be involved with the people within Niamey. This would have taken us away, put us on a military base, a U.S. base, away from the people.
Yeah.
Only focused on the counterterrorism mission.
Right.
I like to be involved with more humanitarian kind of stuff. Yeah, so the U.S. has resumed their ISR mission since the coup happened in Niger, and they're doing it out of that base in Agadez.
Okay.
If the U.S. was asked to leave completely, that would be a probable start for building what I would call it a Sino-Russian, like a Russia-Chinese military base.
Okay.
And they would try to utilize any supplies left behind by the U.S. military.
Well, since you brought up China's increased involvement in Africa, let's focus on the recent surge in China's military activity near Taiwan. Taiwan's defense ministry reported that China has sent a record number of military aircraft towards Taiwan this year. So what does that mean? What's going on there?
Yeah, so that increase near Taiwan is certainly a matter of concern for regional stability. In 2021, the People's Liberation Army sent 972 flights towards Taiwan. As of September of this year, 2023, 1,268 military flights have been sent, and we still have a few months to go.
Right.
Now, Taiwan has tracked 103 Chinese military aircraft entering its air defense identification zone, with 40 crossing the median line in the Taiwan Strait. Now, these actions have raised tensions and then prompted Taiwan to call China's actions, quote, continuing military harassment, end of quote. And they're warning against these increasingly aggressive actions from China, which are causing tensions.
Well, we know that China is becoming increasingly more aggressive towards Taiwan, but why has China been increasing its military presence near Taiwan?
Yeah, that increased military presence serves multiple purposes.
We changed our map. Now we're
changed our map. We'll put our military there.
Yeah, we're do
good.
What we want.
You know, there was a time way back when where you just planted a flag and the land was yours.
Yeah,
we don't live in that time anymore, G. Sorry.
No, you can't just plant a flag anymore.
So you have to do.
The people also need to agree, kinda.
Yeah,
right?
That's what we're having.
Smoother. Obviously, they don't have to agree because the people of Ukraine do not agree with what's going on in their country right now. But
well, if you hold a gun to their head,
the ideal conditions would be like, yeah, sure, we'd love to.
Right. So that's great to bring up because by increasing military activity, China aims to wear away Taiwan's military equipment and personnel as they assert dominance.
Wear away? What does that mean? Wear away their military equipment? They're not using the equipment against China.
They are using some of it. So
they are?
They are using some equipment.
Well, they should know that this is this is them not bluffing, but just trying to force their hand, and they're not trying to do anything. They want Taiwan to pull the trigger first so that they can...
Yeah. And it's a double-edged sword because it's like, the boy who cried wolf. You do it enough times, and then the town becomes lax, and the wolf finally comes.
Oh, that way you don't know when they're actually serious, when they're actually going to... okay. So that's why they are using some of their military equipment, because they aren't sure whether or not this is it. This is when China's going to invade us.
Yep. And you'll see that a lot in like the use of drones and
right.
So we're not talking about like missiles and ammunition being fired, but you're putting wear and tear on military equipment that normally would just be used for exercises.
Okay.
Now, we've discussed on multiple occasions that President Xi from China, his one plan is to reunify Taiwan with China, either peacefully or through force. So these aggressive actions don't necessarily mean that they're going to do it by force, because it could just be a measure to pressure Taiwan to cave and then peacefully reunify. So if I've been reading the Sun Tzu's
Art of War.
Art of War, yeah.
You okay?
Sorry, I had a Mitch McConnell moment there for a second.
Mitch McConnell moment.
And that's the first thing that is taught in the Art of War is to you want to win without ever going to war.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so that is doctrine in China, and that's what they're trying to do right now. They would love to do it peacefully, They know that's not going to happen. And some analysts
leave them alone.
well, some analysts believe that China's recent surge in flights is aimed at pressuring Taiwan to even develop weaker ties with the U.S. Because if the U.S. says, we're not going to help, we're not going to do anything, that sets up for an uncontested takeover of the island of Taiwan.
Well, I mean, you've mentioned previously that a war with China is not inevitable right now, but we are getting pretty close to that situation. For the listeners, can you kind of explain what the precursor to an invasion would look like, or what the people should be keeping an eye on as a precursor?
Yeah, so
invasion.
It's going to sound a lot like what we saw with Russia leading up to the invasion of Ukraine. So if you
stationing military on the border.
There you go. So it's going to be tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of troops along the border.
So more than Russia.
Well, they have a lot more than Russia. They just have a lot more people.
Yeah.
This troop movement would likely be picked up by government intelligence officials. It's also, just like with Russia, Ukraine, going to be picked up by open source analysts. And so you'd start seeing that, and then that's going to trigger countermeasures from the U.S.
Okay.
And you'll start seeing news out of the Pentagon that the U.S. is setting up for something, and that's going to be the preparation of U.S. defense forces.
Okay. And what happens if China decides to go for it? Just quit talking about it. Just do it.
All right. So the invasion, if an invasion continued, and this is despite defensive measures by Taiwan and the U.S., those deterrents we talked about the last couple weeks.
Right.
What China is going to do would likely involve a combined amphibious and airborne assault operation, and that'd be to cross the Taiwan Strait to reach Taiwan shores. They want to put boots on the ground in Taiwan. Now, this operation would be very complicated. It would need to be highly organized. That's why, as intelligence professionals, we see it leading up to it, because you don't just one day decide, hey, let's just go do it. It's not 200 BC where we can just throw a bunch of horses and...
There's always the element of surprise, because obviously there's no communication.
Right.
Like,
you might have some scouts out there or something.
You never know what's coming, really.
Yeah. Also, the assets involved are going to be very vulnerable to attacks by the U.S. Because it's highly organized. So China would have already telegraphed their intentions. So then the U.S., who's already got a bunch of, naval vessels and Air Force out there, they'd already be viewing it. Now, once on the ground in Taiwan, Chinese forces would then face rocky terrain, densely populated urban areas, but also a population that's willing to fight against China. We talked about this. It's at like above 70% that the Taiwanese people still want to remain Taiwan. They don't want the reunification. That's a population willing to fight.
I'm honestly just kind of curious how China plans to do this and still, it has to be a surprise, obviously.
Right.
Like, the world is hyper aware of what China's intentions are for Taiwan. Like, everybody knows it's the worst kept secret in geopolitics. So I just wonder how they plan on executing this without everybody knowing and, manning their stations and getting
I think it comes down to Xi asks his military for a plan that they believe would be successful even without the element of surprise. Can we overwhelm the island of Taiwan, who's even being supported by the U.S.? If the U.S. were to support, how could we overwhelm the island of Taiwan? And that's
so surprise isn't even something that they're...
No, they're not.
I mean, obviously, that would be an ideal scenario, but in this day and age where everybody records everything, makes note of everything, news happens in microseconds.
Yeah.
kind of hard to do that. And obviously, because obviously Russia started stationing their troops along the borders before they, went into Ukraine. We know this is a chip that's been played before.
Yep. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
What did George W. Bush say?
I don't know.
Fool me once, fool me again, never again. He just had a very confusing time with it.
Did he really say that?
It was something along those lines. He couldn't get it out. I missed that guy a lot.
You missed all right, let's get back to it.
Well, what I was saying was that any invasion, because they can't be secretive,
right?
It's going to be a long and challenging endeavor.
Right. Okay. Well, you did mention that Chinese forces would be vulnerable to U.S. military attacks, but are we sure that the U.S. will get involved? And how exactly would the U.S. respond to an invasion of Taiwan?
So as of
secret or obvious?
As of today, September of 2023, the U.S. remains committed to the defense of Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act. So we have the One China policy, which is what we say publicly, which says everything is China, blah, blah, blah. But we also have a Taiwan Relations Act that means we are committed to the defense of Taiwan. So in the event of an attempted invasion, the U.S. would be obligated to come to Taiwan's defense. That's why I said as of today, September 2023, because all that can change.
Yeah.
The detection of a significant troop movement by China would trigger the U.S. to initiate countermeasures and then prepare its defensive forces as a deterrent. With the tipped-off U.S. military in place, they'd be ready to defend Taiwan. This is why you see the challenges for China to successfully execute the invasion across the Taiwan Strait. Those challenges are going to multiply exponentially.
Well, you keep bringing up how difficult this is going to be for China. And from the way you broke it down, it does seem that it will take quite an effort.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that is why China has begun to talk publicly about peaceful coexistence between the U.S. and China? They want us on their side. They're trying to sway us.
Yeah, they're trying to bluff.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That could also be it too.
But I mean, it could be an indicator because China's population is aging. Its economy is not in a good place.
Every country relates to that right now.
And it's fractured some of Xi's absolute control over the government. If he cannot improve the economy and the people's livelihood, they're going to revolt. That's how revolutions are started.
Right.
So this call for stable and peaceful ties also follows a series of meetings and talks between U.S. and Chinese officials. So it's not a one-off thing. It's not just Xi saying it. So that's another indicator. And it could be aimed at reducing tensions because they're starting to restore. So we're seeing the restoration of communication channels we haven't seen in decades.
That's kind of awesome.
That is, talking can be a good thing.
Right.
This includes contact between the two militaries. Now, for many years, the two military, the top generals of each military have said they've never talked to each other. That's concerning.
Right.
So it's not like I said, it's not a one-off comment. But I haven't seen any additional indicators that would make me think that Xi has moved his 2025 plan for Taiwan reunification to a later year. But it's something that we're going to keep an eye on and we're going to keep talking about.
So how significant do you feel is President Xi's call for peaceful and respectful relations between China and the U.S.?
Well, the recent statements by Xi, like I said, coupled with the series of meetings and talks between U.S. and Chinese officials, to me, it really does suggest a willingness to engage in dialogue and find common ground. My issue is, are we going to find things that we can compromise on, and is China going to find things that they can compromise on? It could be that the U.S.'s plan to deter China is by strengthening its alliances in the Indo-Pacific, and that plan is maybe working. Maybe China's seeing hey, we're overmatched with all of these alliances that the U.S. is making. I do think, though, that he's paying very close attention to the upcoming U.S. presidential elections before he commits to whether he's going to be more aggressive towards Taiwan.
Of course. Well, do you think China has a preference for who they would like to see elected in 2024?
Well, they certainly don't want Donald Trump as president again.
They want Dementia Joe.
I mean, anything but Trump, and that's not me saying my opinion on Trump or not.
Right.
It's during his administration. Mm-hmm. He had a very anti-China agenda, and for good reason.
Yeah.
So
he was he was always vocal about which, you know what? You got to hand it to him. Most presidents aren't that brutally honest.
Right. I mean, that's what some voters.
That's what people are claiming. That's what they want.
Yep. And he also
was trying to change all the laws to where he could be president indefinitely and stuff. So
there's some give and take there.
Yeah.
Now, recently, he's proposed, if he's president,
right.
These are propositions against China, and why I'm saying absolutely Xi does not want Donald Trump as president.
Okay.
So he proposed universal baseline tariffs with China, revoke China's what we called most favored nation trade status. He's also proposed phasing out all Chinese imports of essential goods into the U.S.
Then we'll have nothing here.
Right. Well, in a war with China, we're going to face that exact same problem.
True. That's true. Thank you for bringing me back to reality here.
Well, another thing that we'll see in a war with China, but I think U.S. companies and very public organizations like the NBA would not like is Trump has proposed barring U.S. companies from investing in China. So there's billions of people to reach out to in China to purchase things. And so if a business can't establish there, they're going to be a little cautious about that. He's also wants to ban China from buying U.S. farmland, which I agree with. I don't think China should be buying U.S. farmland to do as they will. Mm-hmm. And he also wants to revoke federal contracts to companies that outsource to China. Now, that's another thing that I really am in favor for. If you are a U.S. federal contractor as a company, you should not be outsourcing to any different country.
It doesn't make any sense. That seems like a freaking security issue.
Yeah, it's 100% a security issue.
And then I do agree. No country should be buying the land of another country.
For any purposes.
Of another country. For any purposes. That makes no sense at all. None.
Now, also, Mr. Trump is, I think, unpredictable. I think I can say that confidently and nobody can be upset with that.
Yeah, you're unpredictable.
Yeah,
he is. He's a wild card, one might say.
Yes, he is the wild.
But he's not. He's under Kim Jong-un though.
He's a wild card with some checks and balances.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, it isn't necessarily true that he's going to agree to U.S. support for Taiwan in the event China invades. He could just say, that's your problem. He's seen as more of an isolationist.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to get in. This is what he campaigned on. He doesn't want to get involved in foreign wars.
Because he wants to be the new Kim Jong-un.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody wants to do that. But
I'm saying he wants to be able to run the country indefinitely. He wants to, anything he says, he doesn't want it to be held against him. He doesn't want to face any repercussions for any actions he may have taken or anything he may have said or anything he may have, hidden in his golf course.
I think you just described every person running for office in the United States of America.
Yeah. What are we doing with ourselves,
listen to
guys?
Me and don't ask me questions.
And also, everybody needs to listen to Mitt Romney and freaking retire.
Just
and let the youngins, but
not too young. 39-year-olds.
That's an interesting choice of age that you chose there.
Yeah. It'll be 40 in December. I'll change it to 40.
Shut your mouth hole.
But getting back to Trump. Now, Trump gets a lot of flack for involvement with Russia, right? He's seen as a pro-Russia candidate.
Right.
I can tell you right now, it was his administration that provided military support to Poland when they viewed Russia as being very aggressive towards them. So he does have a history of providing military support towards aggressive actions.
Okay. So then they would want another 4 years of Sleepy Joe Biden?
I mean, I don't think they want that now. They probably did in 2020.
Okay.
But President Biden has been more outspoken now against China and their aggressive actions. He sent high-level officials to engage with Taiwan. China has not liked that. We've discussed that multiple times. You know, the spy plane.
Police stations in New York City.
Police stations. So China's become more aggressive towards the U.S. I think those aggressive actions, even recently, have changed the Biden administration's feelings towards the CCP. Now, I don't necessarily think there's a candidate that China wants over one other candidate, but I could see a situation that China's keeping an eye on, and that's whether or not there's going to be a peaceful transfer of power in the U.S. You know, something like what happened in 2020 would be a win for China.
Well, can you expand a bit on that? What is China hoping for?
Well, I think they'd love another January 6th type event.
Yikes.
Yeah, that would not be good for the U.S. It would put the focus in the U.S. more on domestic issues. I'd say the wrong domestic issues, because it's just about fighting between two political parties. Mm-hmm. So then at that point, an invasion of Taiwan may go under the radar. Now, I reiterated on several occasions, we've talked about this all the time. Next year's going to be crazy. Mm-hmm. You've got multiple major global powers holding elections that could very well change the entire geopolitical landscape. And it's very difficult to predict what people are going to do. It's very difficult to predict what the future's going to look like once we get to 2025.
Right.
So that's why it's important that we're talking about this stuff and being informed on what's actually happening and what could happen in the future with these topics. And that way you can plan on an individual level for multiple contingencies.
Well, thank you, Kervin. Is that all for this week?
It is not. We have something else we want to talk about.
Right. Let's get to it.
So October is our 2-year anniversary.
As a podcast.
As a podcast couple.
As a podcast couple. Look at us. We're like a podcast power couple.
Yeah, we...
oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? I sound like a chipmunk.
We have 100% of this podcast, and the people involved in this podcast probably thought the 1 year was the limit, and we wouldn't make it to 2 years, but we did it. And
I really thought I would just be like, no,
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it anymore, and it's actually honestly a testament to the friendships we've made through the podcast and the engagement that we've had with multiple people.
Right. So what we're getting to is we are going to have a special episode like we had last year because we are not creative and can't go beyond what we know. So what we're saying is if you have any sort of geopolitical questions that you want to ask, you can send them in. We're going to be posting on Instagram and asking for questions, and eventually we will get to answering all of them for all of you guys.
And it can be personal questions.
It doesn't have to pertain to geopolitics. You can ask something silly if you want. I don't have a question right off the top of my head, but you do because you have time to think about it.
Yeah. And yeah, it could be personal. If it's too personal, you won't have your question read, but if we're really close and you had a personal question, I may respond to it personally, one-on-one, together. But we would really love all of your questions.
We would, now that we have, because obviously last year, whenever we had our 1 year anniversary episode, there were far fewer listeners that we could pull questions from. They did an excellent job of filling up that hour of time, by the way. But we have more people now, and we'd like to hear from you, or you can tell us a story about yourself, too. We like to hear about you guys, so just reach out. We're here.
Or if you have a personal story of how the podcast helped you do something on a geopolitical level, prepare for something.
I'm not asking for smoke to be blown up anybody's butts. I'm just saying you can just ask a question or whatever. I don't know. If we come up with something more creative, we probably won't. Or if you have any ideas, if there's something you would like to see for our anniversary episode, I don't know why I didn't think about that. Let us know. We'll try to.
Hey, you put the suggestion out. We'll work on it.
Yeah. So we're going to be posting on Instagram and asking for input. And you guys, we will figure it out. We'll figure it out. We got some time. It'll
also be in the newsletter where you can click, send an email.
Right. Yeah.
And that's all I've got now. Do you have anything?
No, I got to go make some biscuits.
Always dinner time.
Always dinner time while we're recording. And I am doing what Madeline says, and I'm not making them sweet potato biscuits. I will just make the plain old buttermilk biscuits.
They're both good.
I know. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to this podcast and sticking with us for 2 years. That's quite a feat.
Yep.
We hope that you found it both informative and engaging. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please let us know. And if you would like in-depth coverage of these stories and more, follow us on Instagram at Oakland Analytics.
Tiana, thank you so much. And until next week, stay safe out there.